Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. And we've got some entitled parent stories today, and our first story of the day is by fredzred. My mother broke my wrist because I wouldn't ride a horse. My mother is not a good person, and when thinking of ways to describe her, a few names come to mind. Annie Wilkes from Misery and Margaret White from Carrie, just to name a few. Stephen King depicted my mother quite nicely in those books. Since a very early age, my mother was mentally and physically abusive towards me and my older brother, who's autistic. This is a story of one of those occasions, of which there were many. I think I was about 8 at the time. My younger sister was Mom's golden child. She lived up to all of Mother Dearest's high expectations and liked doing everything that our mom did, like riding horses. I was never interested in doing any of it, probably because of her poor treatment towards me for most of my childhood. My mom and dad had separated when I was very young, but they were civil around each other for the benefit of me and my siblings. At this point, my dad and family members on my dad's side didn't know the things my mom did to me and my brother. I can remember this day so vividly. We were visiting my aunt and her husband, my dad's sister, who lived on a farm. They were all interested in riding horses, but knew that I wasn't, which was never an issue to them. My mother, on the other hand, wasn't so understanding. My sister, 5 at the time, was riding around on a Shetland pony with my uncle walking beside her, and I was sitting on the veranda watching her. My brother had walked off down the driveway a few hours before this, so he was nowhere in sight. He's high-functioning autistic and was fine to be on his own. He was 11 and this was in a small and safe rural town. While sitting and watching, my mother walked up to me. My dad was with my aunt on the other side of the farm. "Why won't you come and ride with your sister?" "Because I don't want to." "Don't be a spoiled brat, get up off your lazy butt now." "Mom, you know I don't like riding horses and I'm not good at it. Please don't make me." Mom, getting visibly angry, "Get up now, you lazy little crap." She grabbed me by my wrist and pulled me hard and fast forward off the chair. I felt a sharp pain in my wrist as she pulled and I screamed out in pain. "Mom, you're hurting me, stop my wrist." "Stop being a sook and get up." My wrist hurt so bad and began to throb in pain, but whenever I did something about it, Mom just accused me of faking it to get out of doing things. She walked me over to where my dad and aunt were, with my mom dragging me by my now broken wrist, and when we got there, my dad noticed I was crying. Dad says, "What's wrong, are you okay?" Mom, squeezing my wrist to keep me from saying anything, "She's fine, she wants to ride a horse." I say, "No, I don't." I was cut off. "Yes you do, you want to ride the big horse, don't you?" All of my objections were ignored by my mom and she made my dad help me onto a horse, bareback. The big horse was a Clydesdale. Anyone who knows about horses will know that a Clydesdale is far too big for an average inexperienced horse rider, let alone an 8-year-old girl. And this horse was easily spooked, so having a new person on his back that didn't know what they were doing was enough to spook him. He jerked forward quickly and bucked me off. I landed in the grass with my hands taking most of the impact, which made the pain in my wrist even worse. The impact wasn't hard enough to break my wrist, but it was already broken before I'd gotten onto the horse. My mom came rushing over to me to see if I was okay. I was crying in pain and grasping onto my wrist. Mom, doing her best fake concerned mother act, "Oh, you poor thing, are you okay? Let me help you up." I say, "My wrist, it hurts." "Oh no, you must have broken it when you fell." Dad took me to the hospital and my wrist was broken. When I told Dad that Mom broke my wrist, he didn't believe me. Not because he was a neglectful parent, but because he saw me fall onto my hands, so he put 2 and 2 together. Most of my cries for help as a child fell on deaf ears. I spent the next 8 weeks with my wrist in a cast, which made school hard, as I couldn't hold a pen. It was my right wrist and I'm right-handed. I want to say that this was the worst thing that my mother has done to me, but I'm sad to say it isn't. I'm no longer in contact with her, and my life is better without her in it. This story's a tough one because when you hear it, you kind of wish that you could somehow go back and influence so that the dad took the clarification from OP that their mom actually broke their wrist by tugging on it more seriously. Considering just what you heard here, do you think OP made enough of an effort to explain what the real situation was? Or do you think it was more the father just being ignorant to the truths of it? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Darkasmyweave. My mom is infantilizing me to try and stop me moving out. I am so sick of my self-absorbed mother and need some advice because God knows she won't help. Sorry if this is the wrong sub. I'm moving out for university because, among other things, my mom is controlling and homophobic, which doesn't bode well for me, her bisexual child. She's also one of those immigrant parents that love to guilt trip about how much they gave up for you. BS, she married too early and ended up divorced. She's also extremely Christian as well, which I am not, as she keeps trying to use various manipulative tactics to force it on me. I haven't mentioned my university accommodation to her at all. I only told her I was moving out, which she's still pissed about. She claims she wanted me to tell her more, so I did tell her about some accommodation I've found. It's in London, £171 a week, $221. Bills and Wi-Fi inclusive, and 20 minutes from my uni. So basically a godsend. The only problem is I thought I'd tell my mom about it as the payments are confusing and I needed some help. Instead, she said, I don't know the value of money and I'm just wasting loans that I'll have to pay back for years. For context, I live an hour away from the uni and my mom wants me to live at home. She's treating me like a stroppy child and refusing to be helpful. It's almost like she's gaslighting me to believe I'm too stupid and immature to move out, and I'm sick of it. My dad's a crap for context, so no help there. She thinks she's such a great parent and can't fathom why I would want to move out. I'd just like some other opinions on the matter. London is opening up after the pandemic, and the room would be my own and en-suite, so only a shared kitchen and common room. I'm receiving the maximum maintenance loans, so I should be able to manage. The only problem is I have no help and just my mom is trying to convince me I'm too much of a child to move out, which is seriously affecting me mentally and making me doubt myself. I'm already struggling as it is. It's like a catch-22. My mental health won't improve until I move out, which won't happen until my mental health improves enough for me to move out. I just feel so lost, but my gut feeling is that I need to move out because I can't stand living in this house anymore. Thankfully, a lot of people in the comments of this post are helping out OP, but the main sentiment is simply rip the band-aid off and just get out, and sometimes you have to take a risk, and staying at home forever isn't the one you want to make. Personally, I'm wishing all the best for OP, and I hope that the situation gets resolved and they can figure out a situation that works for them and works for their mental health and university. Our next story is by YEET-DAT-BOI. Aunt takes advantage of my grandparents and my mom's pregnancy to steal our house. She gets put in her place. Backstory: my dad has an older sister we'll call entitled Aunt, and always, even as a child, my grandparents treated her like an angel and treated my dad like a piece of crap. For example, when my dad was in college, he wore clothes that had holes that were about 3 inches wide, and the tradition in China is that you get a lot of new clothes in the new year. His mom told him that they were going to get him a brand new coat for the winter, and my dad was really excited. A few days before the New Year's though, his parents said that they can't get him a coat. The coat they were going to give him cost 1,000 yuan, $143 USD. But can you guess where that money went? Entitled Aunt's freaking boyfriend. How can you treat your son like that? Here's something worse. The coat that they gave the boyfriend was 2,000 yuan. You could have just split the dang money so they both had new coats. The second my dad was out of college, he started working his butt off. He was able to give his parents money every year even when they treated him like crap. Later finding out that every year, all that money goes to entitled Aunt, but that's a different story. You get the gist. My dad treats his parents really well and all that effort equals nothing, or it goes straight to entitled Aunt. Story: for some reason they hated my dad, mom, me, and siblings. This happened a few years ago when my mom was giving birth to my brother. I didn't realize how bad this story was until a few years ago because I did not understand. So I was born in Beijing. My mom was somehow able to foresee that prices and houses were going to go up in there, so she and my dad worked hard to buy as much houses as they can. However, there is a limit to how many houses you can buy in Beijing, but my mom was able to find a loophole. She bought the house with her own money, but put the house under someone else's name. She bought a house and put the house under my dad's mom's name. My mom paid for all the renovation. Important later. Fast forward about 4 years. My mom was pregnant with my brother. There was a law in China that says no having more than one baby, so they came to the US to legally have a baby. This is when entitled Aunt saw her chance. She took advantage of my parents' absence to manipulate my grandparents, telling them to put the house my mom bought 4 years ago under entitled Aunt's husband. Obviously, my grandparents caved in really easily and transferred it. Luckily, my mom's brother, I don't know how, was able to find out that they transferred it. Now, we were still in the US, so we weren't able to deal with this immediately. My parents called their lawyers to have a court summon for entitled aunt. She took her time and waited for the last warning to finally come into court. She brought my grandparents along too. According to my uncle, she was smirking the entire time waiting for the trial to begin, thinking that our side of the court can't really prove it, while low-key insulting our side of the family. I don't know how to translate this, but she said things like, my brother had always been naughty, probably also passed it down to his children too. Or, my brother was such a coward, he didn't even want to come because he knew I'd win. Then came the sweet revenge. The court first asked entitled aunt to talk. She said that the house was bought by grandmother and was then given to her husband, obviously with no proof. Then my uncle with the lawyers took out a record, clearly stating that my mother purchased this house with her own money. I wish I could have seen entitled aunt's face, but my uncle described it as a dark green and maybe a little purple too. The judge then asked entitled aunt if this was true. The judge stated that if she was to lie, she would end up with much worse than just giving the house back. Surprisingly, she still stood her ground and claimed that the house was indeed her husband's, who got the house from grandmother and paid for renovations. That's where she messed up. My uncle and the lawyers triumphantly took out another paper saying that my mother paid for all the renovations, clearly not my aunt's husband. That's when she broke down like a witch. She started crying, screaming in undecipherable language. She was soon taken to jail for 1 to 2 years? I forgot, but holy crap. She deserved it. There's 2 things that I got from this story. The first is don't go against your own family. The second is the legal system in China does not play around. And our final story of the day is by AllTheTearsThatICrid, entitled Mom Thinks I'm Not Old Enough for My Seat. Okay, background story. Here in my country, you need to be 12 plus in order to sit in the front of the bus. I don't know why, but it's like that. I travel a lot and, 13-year-old me likes to sit in the front, and so I always do. As always, me and my aunt would get on a bus to go wherever we needed to go. I sit in my usual place and my aunt sat in the far back because everywhere else was full. Here comes entitled mother and her son. Excuse me, can my son sit here? I say, sorry, but I really want this spot. We're so extremely tired and we want to sit here. Yeah, but the other seats are the same as this one. They have the same comfort. Fine. And the sentence you all heard in this subreddit many times, I thought that would be our last interaction. Boy, was I wrong. The bus starts going and after a while, like usual, it gets stopped by a cop and he asks me my age. I say 13 and he smiles and pats my hair. Some might think that's creepy, but in the Arabic world, that's kind of a A1 way to show appreciation towards children. It's kind of a really nice gesture here. Here comes entitled mother again. You're 13? You're at least 10. Cop says, what grade are you in? I say the 7th grade. Ha, told you he's not 13. A man in his 20s sitting next to me asks me, how old were you when you started school? I say 7, which is true. She has the audacity to say in front of the cop, you should have let my 9-year-old son sit there. The driver gets mad and tells her to shut up or else she will get kicked out. She refuses and starts screaming, so the cop takes her and her son. I don't know what happened after that, but at least I know she got shut up. Now, this is going to be a complete guess on my part, but to address the very first statement in this story where they said, you need to be 12 plus in order to sit in the front of the bus and they don't know why it's like that, I would assume it's for safety reasons. I don't know where in the world this is, but I could imagine maybe riding a bus could be a somewhat dangerous form of transport, so having a 12 plus restriction on that seems normal. And then also not for just safety of transport, but also safety with strangers maybe. If you're further back from the front, you might be at less risk of somebody attempting some kind of kidnap style thing, probably. That being said, if you're sitting somewhere and somebody else isn't entitled to that seat, like if they were disabled or very elderly or something, then I could see them being kind of forced or heavily suggested to give that seat up. But if it's just a random mother and son, they're entitled to keep that seat. They sat there first. So I'm sure OP and everybody else didn't feel too bad seeing entitled mother get yanked off the bus by the cop. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe if you haven't, and turn on notifications so you'll never miss an upcoming video from the Storytime channel. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, so no matter what you did, thank you for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here.